wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I'm looking forward to getting into the music and how it all began and where we're going.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. So let's begin the journey with 5 years ago. This pandemic was raging. Everything was getting kind of thrown into different directions for all of us, especially musicians. How did you get through the big pandemic of 2020 and how has it radiated into your world in 2025?
Wow. So the bulk of my bread and butter at that time, and it still is running community choirs. So non-auditioned, lovely, lovely choirs. And our government in the UK decided that singing was a super spreader activity and you couldn't possibly sing next to each other because the particles would be spreading COVID. Uh, which was bizarre because you could still go into a pub and sit in tables of six and things. So my whole world got really shaken up. I'm a people person, so I love to be out and about connecting with musicians, audiences, singers in the choirs. And we ended up doing online virtual choir rehearsals and compositions. So in some ways, if you search on the internet, there are these beautiful reminders of some of the way that we continue to connect and make art in a different way. So there was elements that were really beautiful. It also gave me time to think about, I've been living in London and it can feel a bit of a sort of, you're on a treadmill and you never get off. And it prompted my move to the countryside, which gave me time. You need to be a tiny bit bored, I think. We've got phones strapped to us. I wake up, my phone's there, the messages are pinging. So the pandemic gave me time to think about, musicians that would perhaps normally be quite busy. We had a lot more time and I was able to connect a lot, mostly with Michael Garvin, who I was just mentioning earlier. He was in Louisiana at the time and we just wrote loads of songs. We'd be online. We had nothing else to do. It was great. So the pandemic was in many ways the most stressful time, but it was pivotal as well. It changed my trajectory. Yeah.
So let's get into the new music, the new album. Talk to me a little bit about what were the kind of the artistic forces that went in to Blue Sky Now? Like, what was the vision? How good does it feel that it's out?
Sure. I think when I started writing, I wasn't thinking about an album. I wasn't thinking about songs that cohesively go next to each other. I've got a real wide range of influences, everything from choral music to dance music to folk. My parents are big folk musicians, but I love jazz and
Yeah.
I love the old singer-songwriters like from the 70s, Carole King, James Taylor, Joni. Like a classic song is what grips me. It really does. Clever lyrics. So I think looking at Cole Porter and Gershwin, they've got real clever turns of phrase. So the songs really, they're about my life. That's I struggle to write unless there's a real thing, a real emotion, a real topic there. Whether I'm writing with somebody else and it's talking about their experiences, but for me, yeah, it's important for me to try and go not necessarily always deep, but truthful. So the songs are, yeah, my experiences over the last few years.
So what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
Um, I hope they connect to it. There's one song in particular, Blue Sky Now, which is the title track, which is very personal to me. And I think people are starting to find out the backstory of it. But when they first listen to it, they might interpret it as something else. And that's okay as well. A lot of people relate to, there's a song called Goodbye London, because people are drawn to living in London and it's amazing, it's fast paced, it's expensive. Some people end up putting their roots down there and others don't. And I think that if you have lived in London and you move away, there's quite often an element of sadness that maybe it didn't quite, the job careers didn't happen, you didn't meet the love of your life there, you couldn't afford property. I think lots of that can be quite a common experience. I hope people like it. I
Yeah.
think I listen to the radio and stuff in the charts now for me isn't always the music that I mean, I love all kinds of music. There are some great artists out there and some great songs. You know, I'm gonna name check like Bruno Mars and Lady Gaga. I kind of love what they're doing. There are lots of artists that are great, but there's a lot where the songwriting is written for perhaps dance producers. It's very top line heavy and it isn't developed in the same way. Whereas I think the traditional songwriting, I'm very lucky to work with Michael Garvin a lot. His pedigree is number one hits for people like Kenny Rogers. He's written for Dusty Springfield. You know, there's a real heritage there. And I think that this music could appeal to people that perhaps feel that the classic song is missing a little bit in what we listen to in the
Yeah,
charts at the moment.
I totally agree. The other thing is Blue Sky has become a very popular social platform now. So, right? It's kind of a topical. You could get a lot of traffic that way.
I mean, great. That's purely accidental. It's
Right.
purely accidental.
Yeah,
Yeah.
social music for a social platform. So let me ask you this. How did this journey into the music, you kind of mentioned your parents and folk music. How did this journey begin and how did it kind of evolve into this jazz world that you're in?
Um, I can't even remember or attribute a beginning. I've got memories of sitting on the staircase as a child, being maybe the fifth stair up, and my dad leaning a double bass on me because, I mean, not in a painful way, but
Yeah.
you know, it was obviously too big for me to sit with a chair. And then he put a couple of stickers on, and it was probably like some 1/5 kind of movements, you know. And I remember my dad introducing me to the double bass. We had a piano in the house growing up, and I came home from primary school when you're 5 years old, and I said, I found something out about my teacher. My parents were like, what can be shocking to a 5 year old? Like, what's controversial? I don't know, not that it is, but maybe they're divorced or I don't know, something. And I said, they can't play piano. And they said, that's normal, Hannah. It is normal. And because everybody that came into the house was musical in some way, connected to my parents. So yeah, the start of it, it's just always been there, always, always. In the days before dishwashers, my mum would be washing up and I'd be drying up, and we'd probably be singing in harmony, and it was just a very normal thing. So what was the rest of your question? How did it start?
Well, yeah, and then kind of how did jazz become a focus?
You know what? I'm not really sure how jazz became a focus, but I just fell in love with particularly Ella Fitzgerald. And we're going to the days before the internet. There wasn't Spotify where you could just find anything or Shazam a song. And I just really liked the vocal tone, the quality of the singing. I'd been in youth choirs where we were singing very classical on the whole music, which is great, but you're using your voice in a really different way. And you're making me remember I had a boyfriend at the time, and his dad had a jazz record collection, and this is height of technology. He knew how to burn a CD. And one of my birthdays, he burnt me a CD of different jazz music. And that I was like, wow, I can play this. I've got, you know, probably one of those portable CD
Uh-huh.
players. Oh my
Yep.
God, we're going back. You know,
Oh
I was
yeah.
pretty young. I was pretty young, and I must have listened to that one CD. I think it had some Carmen McRae on it. Gosh, the songs would come back to me in a flash as soon as I'd hear them. What was on that CD? Love Me and Leave Me and Let Me Be Lonely and things like that. And I just, yeah, when I'd go sort of to markets and things and there'd be a CD stall, I'd pick up something that was jazz. I just really liked it. And then I got really sort of lucky in a way because I was about sort of 16 and my friend's dad played in a jazz band and I was doing youth theatre and they said my dad really needs a jazz singer for their band. So I started singing, but I didn't know anything about counting in. They'd tell me what key I was singing it in. I think one of them I remember said to me, don't click on 1 and 3, click on 2 and 4. That will, and you know, but I think in a way that gave me great experience, but also I think because everybody did everything for me, I'm coming to it later and, you know, getting my head around the charts and getting my head around being a band leader is something that I'm developing now in a way that I didn't because I didn't have to. So blessing and a curse in some ways.
What was the first live one of the seminal live jazz shows you witnessed that blew you away, that galvanized you to want to get on stage one day?
Gosh. You're making me think. To be honest, I don't know if it was the jazz stuff that made me want to get on stage because I was also listening to, what was in the charts was UK bands like Blur and Oasis.
Yeah.
There was a band called Portishead, which I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
if you would have
Oh
been
yeah.
familiar with.
Yeah.
And I think it's taken me a long time to create this debut album because I've been going down all these different other lovely roads. I'm not going to call them dead ends at all, but I was in an indie band, I was doing dance music, I was doing so many other things. But I think this album truly, truly is like, no, this is how I want to be remembered, I guess,
Yeah.
Um, it feels really, really honest. I was chatting to my friend last night who's a producer, and we were just sort of joking about we've both now I've got my ADHD diagnosis, which explains this huge sort of drive and energy. And I was like, we made a joke about Fidgety Kids. And I was like, sounds like a band name, Fidgety Kids. I was
Uh-huh.
like, I'm going to have a really cool fringe. You're going to have a beanie hat. We're going to make this electronic music. And I was like, we've got to do it. We,
Yeah.
we probably won't. Maybe we will. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's awesome.
No, I think that the jazz for me, oh, I just love it. I'm in awe of jazz musicians. I didn't study music, so I've got the jazz guilt, as it were,
Yeah.
of knowing some of my chords. But sometimes other people talk to me about chord voicings and why particular, and I'm like, oh, that's incredible. I love like Bill Evans. I just adore as a singer. Listening to instrumental music, I'm like, Bill Evans he's singing. He's
Yeah.
singing through that piano. It's astonishing. There's another pianist, Reuben James, who, talking back to the pandemic, Reuben is on tour normally. I got to have a piano lesson with him. It was deeply humbling. It was like, you got to go around your cycle of fifths, darling. And I was like, okay, I've got to go around stuff like that, where I think as a singer, sometimes we can get by without knowing that stuff.
Yeah.
I think we should. I think we
Yeah.
should. Music theory unlocks so much more. It explains why something works and it helps us out when we want to be inventive as well. And it's a communication tool.
What's been the biggest difference between having this dream, incubating this dream of being a musician and a singer, and actually doing it? What's that gray area where the being here and actually arriving has been surprising and it's been different from your dream?
Has been surprising. I was going to say the biggest difference is fear and doubt.
Yeah.
I read something about, if you are truly changing and developing, it's going to feel unstable because it's new.
Hmm.
Um, I think that the album is out today, and I just feel kind of calm,
Yeah.
maybe relieved that I can't keep tinkering with it. Oh, can I just change this? Da, da, da. That it's out there now, and I've got to let it go. I think that I need to now live a little bit and have some experiences that are just real life so that I can start thinking about album two or the EP or something, because now that I'm doing it, I'm loving it. It's really wonderful to connect with people, other musicians, audiences. It's One person said, "Have you got a tour bus?" And I thought that was incredibly sweet and a little bit naive because we're not at that stage yet. Um, yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah. So it's release day. So what do you do? Do you have confetti? Do you have champagne? Do you what are you doing to celebrate it?
I have got a couple of gigs. I've got 3 gigs this weekend, so
Okay.
there is no champagne tonight whatsoever.
Yeah.
I've just had a facial, so I'm a little bit shiny.
Yeah.
I can't put makeup on for a few hours. What am I doing? A lot of social media, a lot of thanking people, a lot of connecting with people. People are just saying, "Oh, I've just heard the track and this one's my favorite." And yeah, just a lot of the sort of the admin related around it. Maybe I'll have a little drink with my boyfriend later, but
Yeah.
we're doing a Facebook Live and an Instagram Live later on.
Okay.
Interview with yourself. Yeah, just the kind of the admin of it, really. I
Yeah.
think that I get to Wednesday or Thursday next week. Today's Friday. I think Wednesday evening is when I will, that's
Uh-huh.
when that's when it kind of calms down, she says, maybe.
Exhale. So what do you like the best about being a professional musician? What gets you up every day? Why do you love this?
Oh, I think music is just, there is something bigger than us that we can tap into, and whether for some people that is a God thing, I don't know, but it is bigger than us, and we can express ourselves and we can connect. And I don't know, I love when I listen to music, I know how much those musicians have put into making a record for us to enjoy. Oh, it's just beautiful. I've done it all my life, singing, you're connecting with something. I can't put it into words, I don't think. So that's a
So
rubbish interview, isn't it? I can't put it into words. You're like,
yeah,
try.
yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. That's why we have music, because sometimes the music is the answer. So let me ask you this. If you could go back in time in a time machine and see Ella Fitzgerald in one incarnation live, where are you going? What venue? What year? Where are you going?
Would it be Ella?
I
Hmm.
will tell you mine while you think.
Well,
And
yeah,
and
please.
and I always kind of pose this question, what would be the dream show? For me, I would love to see her the first time walk out on that Apollo stage with that raucous crowd, young girl, totally shy, but comes alive like an angel on that stage and totally blows that whole place apart.
Amazing. Gosh, I don't know, I'm gonna have to like come back because
Yeah.
oh to I mean, I was talking to my hairdresser. I used to live in East London, and this was a few years ago. And she said that like the big bands were touring, and she got to see Ella. And um, I think just that whole era, I got really into. I used to sing with a swing band as well, and we would do. It's called Lindy Hop, which is the
Hmm.
swing dancing.
Hmm.
We do these like Lindy Hop festivals, and I just got really obsessed with all of that. And it's a lot of it's big band music. Um, Gosh, and I think to have been part of that scene
Yeah.
and just almost taking it for granted, just we're going to rock up and you've got Duke Ellington.
Yeah.
We're going to just, and to dance to it and to really live and breathe it. I think part of the whole societal thing, rather than maybe just a sit down concert for me, just to live through that would be incredible. I also love, the late 60s and 70s with, like I say, the Joni Mitchells and the
Yeah.
Carole King. I think some of that would have like really stopped me in my tracks as well. Yeah. I wonder if you're living in a scene when it's happening or if it's
You know,
retrospective.
it's interesting. I interviewed Chuck Israels at one point, and he was in the soup with Miles and all the cats. And I just kind of was like, did you realize what you were doing? You guys were just creating this golden honey dripping era
Yeah.
of music that was going to be revered forever. And he was like, no, we just were doing it. We were in the middle of just, and I don't know if you're really good at being a creative. I think you're so ready for what you're doing either in that moment as an existential mindset or you're looking at what the next is, which is why when I come to you to talk about this album, you've already recorded it. You've already gone through production. You've gone through this entire process, and now you're kind of at like you just stepped over the finish line. You just went through the tape and you're looking back. So you get to kind of reminisce and reflect on this entire journey, kind of in a nostalgic way, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also the way that the internet has changed things and the fact that we now are not just musicians, we are also social media content creators. I think that there is a creative element with that. But for me, it's that, the songwriting is what comes first. That's what I love. And then I love performing because people are there and you get instant feedback, and the recording is like the part that is my least favorite because
Yeah.
you got to commit to that one take.
Yep.
Isn't my best, can I do it again? Yeah, so yeah, I'm not quite at that reflective point in the
Sure.
journey yet, but
Yeah.
I'm at that kind of, oh yeah, what am I going to do for number two? I think that's where I'm at as well.
Yeah, little exhales. So let me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, everyone on the bandstand that knows you, but you run the show. What's your
Mhm.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
um, Somebody genuine who's trying their best. I think everybody would see that as well. Trying my best. I want the musicians to enjoy it. Um, yeah, what's the perception? I think there's an honesty. I think that people would see that as well. Yeah, I'm not trying to be something that I'm not.
Yeah.
And that's been an interesting one because some of the music definitely is. rooted in jazz, and some of it's more singer-songwriter. When I'm in the middle of a tour at the moment, and the musicians are all jazz musicians. My piano player has an Oscar Peterson tribute. My regular drummer, he's really into bebop, and he's hilarious. He's calling his next album Back by Bebopular Demand. And we always say on the gig, what's your favourite Transformer? Beboptimus Prime.
Yeah.
So I'm really working with like these jazz musicians, because I think it brings the music to life in a way that if I was working with pop musicians, they're not going to translate over into the jazz world in the same way. Yeah.
So Blue Sky Now is the new album. If anyone wants to get a copy, Bandcamp, is that where to go?
Bandcamp, yeah, they can stream it on all the regular streaming platforms as well. Yeah, okay. Bandcamp.
Excellent. Well, best of luck with the shows. Have a wonderful release day. Thank you so much for taking a minute. It was great to get to know you and to hear about the album and your world of music.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Kansas City musicians, filmmakers, and creatives, this is your invitation. Don't miss Sound to Screen, a one-day music and film workshop on July 19th, 2025 at UMKC's Katz Hall from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Learn how to take your song from concept to screen, bring your instruments, connect with local artists, and enjoy a special masterclass with members of Kansas City's own The Freedom Affair. Spots are limited. RSVP now at soundtoscreen.kccreativecity.com or just search for Sound to Screen on Facebook events.